Hi everyone, I'm Tamer. I'm a first year student at MIT Sloan, and I would represent I'm introducing with pleasure Dr. Leonard Zajkowski.
That's
I
correct.
hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, who's gonna talk today about tracking ice hockey and basketball players' workload and motion in arenas. And also co-presenting with him is Dan Coughlin, who is the Director of Operations at BioCam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamir. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great when I walked in here today, ran into so many of my colleagues and former students when I was at Boston University, where a lot of people still believe I'm at, but I retired in 2010 after a long career here involved in primarily training psychologists, psychophysiologists, and I learned at that time that psychology was really important in human performance, but as our previous speaker said, is being trumped by engineers now with data analytics. And I did learn very quickly that psychology, as important as it was for human performance, that it was only one of the sciences that was really important in top-level performance. One of the challenges when I left the university to work for a National Hockey League team and bring sports science to the organization, why can't we use GPS indoors? So it was a challenge I never thought about too much, and I tracked around the world and found my colleague Dan Coughlin and felt that this was something we had to work on, and we did. So we got to the issue of location, which is very important. When you turn into a football game or a hockey game, the announcer breaks in and says, welcome to Monday Night Football. We're coming to you from Dallas or Philadelphia. So location is important in many aspects of the sport industry. So the slide that I put together here is asking the question is, why is athlete monitoring important? Well, it's why you're here, to get that competitive advantage. And what we're able to do with the technology today in 2016 is track, to capture what used to be invisible is now visible because of the technology we have. We can analyze player workload, which we couldn't do before. We were just using our eyes, as coaches have always used their eyes to determine that. Monitor athlete and team fatigue, and ideally prevent injury. And we heard some papers this morning talking about injury and predicting injury. And it's such an important variable because of the cost to an organization. In summary, I made the statement here, it allows us to make predictions. And the speakers this morning were talking about predictions. And the great American philosopher, Yogi Berra, said, prediction is difficult, particularly for the future. And I always think of that when, in particular this morning when I'm hearing about predicting injuries. It's damn difficult. And you can't find enough covariates. And there's element of luck and chance and all of that stuff. So it's very, very difficult to do. So the other thing that kind of drove me, besides the owner's challenge to come up with an indoor positioning system, was that I've worked with coaches for 30-some years. And in fact, I was involved as a coach myself in my previous life and as an athlete, that coaches spend so much time looking at video. They're either going blind or they're going to get macular degeneration or something. And I've often thought, wouldn't it be nice if coaches could supplement looking at the video with some other important parameters about their team and specific players? And so all of this kind of fueled, with BioCam and working with Dan, our own R&D. So we first introduced this in 2012, but it's a rough version. We were involved with the National Institute of Health, fairly significant grant to try to develop the parameters that would allow us to work indoors real well. We did a beta study here right outside of Boston in Bedford at the Edge Sports Center where the women's national hockey team worked out and trained. We did some trials at Boston University in 2013, my old stomping grounds. We did some trials in Huntsville, Alabama with a pro team. And we did some more trial work at UMass Lowell, learned some more about the hostile environments that hockey arenas can be. And then quite recently in September, we have a BioCam system working at the Honda Center, and Dan may talk a little bit about that a little later on. And so that really kind of brings us to kind of the methodology that we introduced to get at some of the, as we mentioned in the abstract of this paper, the outdoor companies who have developed and used GPS for getting these data to teams and coaches and organizations. It's difficult making that adaptation to an indoor system. And I know they've struggled with it, with getting accuracy and obstruction, all of that stuff. And so we had to come up with a methodology that kind of dealt with the problems that are inherent in hostile environments, and whether they're hockey arenas or basketball arenas or indoor football facilities where many teams train now. So I'm now going to switch. We're going to switch speakers. I'm going to have my colleague Dan Coughlin out of Orlando, Florida, talk to you a little bit about the engineering aspects of it in a very practical sense that all of us here can understand it, and those of you who are hockey administrators or basketball administrators and coaches, that it'll make sense to you. You're on, Dan.
Hello, my name is Dan Coughlin. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Zukowski for 4 years now. BioCam is a 20-year-old company that spent considerable time doing motorsports tracking for NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, SCCA, even NHRA drag racing. In that period of time, I learned the value of video reports. I also learned that coaches today, exclusively working with video, found that they needed more. So we put together a platform resulting in the work that we had done in prior work environments. And we discovered that we could blend through our computer technology live capture of synchronous video along with the biometrics from any one of a number of platforms used today, be it a Polar Sports monitoring team system, be it a Zephyr system, be it a First Beat, and other systems that are in use today. We didn't want to compete with that, but we did want to integrate it into our computer capture platform. That platform also provides a real-time animation, which you'll see on the screen. It does so in a mapping version. That mapping version here is static. The reason for its status is that N4 technology is not affected by line of sight. It's not affected when players bunch together in groups, when they have their head down, or when the angle of the arrival is just such that you cannot track them. You lose data link. N4 technology has overcome that. It's satisfactory enough to be used in half of the nuclear power plants in this country and a significant number of war fighters. It took us 4 years to adapt it to a sports platform. Now, part of that platform is the ability to track accurately in indoor positions in hostile environments, in metal buildings where you cannot have any access to GPS. We capture 13 direct measurements. All of those measurements are available to produce reports. Those reports are customized depending on what a team's preference is, depending on what their biometric platforms are. Doesn't affect what we do. We take into account all 13 of these metrics. And as each of them come into play, we're able to capture them live, record the video synchronously, capture the animation which we generate through the computer, and also generate a fourth screen animation report. So here you are as a coach. You want to see what player X did at moment Y, and you won't have to search each of the metric platforms. You won't have to go looking for the video. You won't have to go looking for the velocity or heading. You won't have to look for an animation or a replay. And if you wanted to go aggressively, you could even wire the coach and get live notes from the coach during the activity, which may or may not be a good idea. Some of the notes might not be repeatable. When we take these metrics and put them together, we are able to not only capture them accurately, we're able to display them in real time. That little tag you see sitting there, that's all that's required. It's the size of a pack of wooden matches. It has a 3 to 4 hour duty cycle, sufficient for any game or practice session. This is a case where I can show you a locator that we put into Anaheim facility for the Ducks, and you'll see it there mounted outside of the glass. That is a completely wireless system. We did it in this manner because the Ducks are going through a transition phase of rebuilding their facility. We offer two kinds of installation, a hardwired Ethernet system, which is built into the infrastructure, or a standalone wireless system with battery power, making the installation less expensive, more efficient, and more quickly installed into the facility and able to be used by the end user, which could be the strength and conditioning coach, the trainers, and in fact, it has media applications. The screen you're looking at now shows a full screen 60-inch replication of the data that you see. In the top left, you'll see the physiology from the Zephyr. On the right, you'll see the animation of the computer map. On the left bottom is a picture of the live video, and on the right is a live data report of the metrics that we're producing from all of these elements. Now, I'd like to be able to show you real-time video of this, but if you will understand the situation, we're in the Anaheim Ducks, the first professional NHL team to adopt this. It would not be fair, nor wise, nor advisable to show you what their metric results are, especially at this point in the season. So what we've done is show you the static capture. The CEP system itself not only captures and replays these, it can do so along with capturing live high-def 3G camera video information. It can drive 3 monitors and a Jumbotron. We have found that the Jumbotron visualization of metrics like speed and velocity is an incredible motivator to the players during training sessions. They can look at it and see in real time how they're doing. And it's proven to be an extremely powerful psychological impact on training routines. The reports that you choose as the team or the coaches can be crafted to all be video-centric. So you will look at the video, you can choose which metrics you want to see displayed, and the software will pull them up synchronously. You won't have to search for the video to put it together with the performance metrics. It is all there at one time. You can also use it to create custom hockey or tracking and basketball areas, report by lines, report by shift, report by time in the playing zones that they work in, making it much more efficient for coaches to make playing decisions and post-action reports. There's an additional feature that we found to be very useful. If we were to build this as a standalone system, which we have done to point, it is a workstation. It's isolated and it's not on any network. However, we did some experiments out in Anaheim where we were able to put this into the backbone of the team's network. And if you organize it with a virtual private network, you can allow access through various security protocols for people off-site, trainers, coaches, particularly scouts, or clinicians looking at the rehabilitative reaction and progress of a player who's coming back from an injury, or possibly watch when your orthopedist is in Cleveland and your team is playing in Milwaukee. They can log into the system in your building. No cloud server. We don't recommend that sort of thing. It exposes too many weaknesses. But an outside clinician or trainer or coach can log into your system through a server mechanism, and we have the software to do that, and they can view these metrics and the performance in real time as you're capturing it. Or they can look in and log in through post-action reports, able to look at the same metrics they saw live and come to conclusion and advise coaches and trainers on decisions that they have to make about the player activity. Now, this presentation is a bit shortened because of the fact that we just cannot show you what's going on in the real world with the Ducks. It's just not practical. So at that point, I would like to say that the presentation, although short, is to the point, and I hope you've understood what we had to say, and I'd much rather entertain questions because ENFR is a complicated technology, and I would have to stand up here for about a half hour to explain how the near-field tracking affects the activities that we capture. At that point, I'll turn it over back to Dr. Zakowski, and thank you for your time.
Dan, we've got 10 minutes here for questions, and I'm sure we'll have some. And when you pose the question, I will try to restate the question so that it can be captured on the video. And we'll try to answer as well as we can. Yes, question in the front row here.
So you're able to measure their motion. Are you able to measure their like three-dimensional motion?
Good question. Dan, can you respond to it in terms of the hardware that we have in the
yes,
tracking system?
we're doing two-dimensional capture. Three-dimensional something in the future. just as we're working to increase the range of the system so it will work on an area as big as a football field, we are working with 3D capture. And in fact, we're also experiencing work with virtual reality and simulation.
Thank you. Other questions here? Yes,
What
Kinley?
kinds of things have you done with using this data for sports psychology?
Oh, the question is, what do you do with these data that might impact on my original field, sports psychology? Wonderful question. I think Dan spoke to that pretty well in terms of what we have found is the incredible motivation. You know, athletes, whether they're hockey players, basketball, you name the sport, they're so competitive. And they love to see how their body is performing. And if you can throw it up on the Jumbotron during training sessions, and not only do the coaches know who's not working hard, the players know who isn't working hard, and they'll rib each other and push each other. So from that perspective, it's a great motivator. And of course, those of you who know the work that I've written about extensively is the importance of feedback and practice. And this kind of feedback is just unprecedented. So we can give athletes and coaches feedback that allows them to learn. Because you need those two conditions for learning. You need feedback and you need practice. So with this technology, we get both of those. We get incredible feedback and the opportunity to practice it. And so you incorporate it into your training habits, and as such, you increase your skill set as an athlete. Coaches get better as coaches. That's a great question, but that's kind of how I use it at this point in time. It's part of the whole sports science package, not just psychology, it's the rest of the psychophysiology. Thank you for the question. Yes?
What's the precision of your device and what's the sample rate of the device?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good question. The question is what's the precision, the accuracy, and the sampling rate of our system. Dan can speak to that.
Thank you. That's a very good question. The precision is 30 centimeter resolution at 10 hertz. Now, to some of you, that's maybe gobbledygook. It means that it's simply at 10 times a second we're taking these samples. We work irrespective of the frame rate capture of video or of the 1,000 hertz sample that a heart rate monitor might have. We synchronize those internally so they all come out as one contiguous piece of information.
With all the different tracking technologies out there right now and all the different ways to track players, what separates BioCam from the rest of the field?
Excellent question. I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask
The
that.
question is, how is BioCam separated from the other tracking companies out there?
The N-for technology tracking platform is a short-wave system. The radio waves are long, lengthy beams. N-for, because it's close magnetic, electromagnetic sensing, it works on a 3-axis antenna. There are 3 different orientations inside of that little tag you saw. That tag, from where I am to you right now, if there was a concrete wall between us and you were moving, I would still be able to track your motion, your speed, and your metrics. It's far superior to many accelerometer-based tracking systems.
Yeah, if I could add to that too, the differentiation is that I always felt in building a system like this, video had to be a big part of it because I know what coaches do. They watch video forever and ever. And so they're just not comfortable with other stuff. But if it's all there in one package, look, you can look at the video and then boom, let's stop that and we'll look at number 21 and see what his workload is, heart rate and respiration rate and anything you want to look at. Let's do it at the same time. Okay, press on back with the video. But we can look at workload simultaneously. So it was important to us that we have video as part of the system. So there's the video, the physiology monitoring, and the tracking. 3 things all in one.
Are you guys able to track the location of the puck, or is it players only?
It's only subjects using the tag.
Yeah.
I went through, in fact, I worked with Princeton Video when we did the glowing puck 20 years ago. Not a happy result.
It was talked about this morning too, and it was a disaster, and I don't think we don't want to bring back the disaster of the glowing puck. Yeah. Now there's a question from a young lady there.
How many subjects can you track simultaneously? That's a very good question. First of all, may I say that the number of subjects that we track affects the battery life. So we built our platform for basketball and hockey, and we took the 20 subject limit as the average for a hockey team and 15 subject limit for a basketball team.
Are you able to track both teams that are competing at the same time, or would it just be just the hosting team?
For the time being, first of all, this is not approved for league use in games, which is why we use the portable system, the wireless system. If it comes to a time when a league would take a look at this and the Players Association would allow it, we would prefer to track both sides. But then you have to ask yourself who gets to use the data, and it would have to be both sides. Right now, we're tracking only one side of the equation, which makes it more of a training subject tool than an in-game tool, although it's quite capable of doing both. It's simply a matter of giving the other team a set of tags, and the infrastructure is already in place to track both sides. So that's really a league decision that's out of our hands.
Yeah, there's a question from a young lady by the wall there. What kind of tags do you use where?
Can you see that on the screen? That's the tag.
Set up against a quarter.
Batteries, circuit boards, antennas, and other bits. Oh, and software. Yes, sir. Well, it is a matter of the support inside of a building. Right now, we could do this inside of an indoor practice facility. We're trying to avoid the hardware issues of installing complex systems before we have the ranging ability. Right now, we like to limit ourselves to the size of a hockey arena, 200 by 95. We are now approaching one. In fact, we had an experiment last week where we were able to do a 1,000-yard track. But I'll be back here hopefully next year to tell you about our success with football fields and soccer fields too, I might add. We're not. Pardon me, sir? We are testing indoor football facilities right now. The dense metal structure makes it impossible for any RTLS traditional system to work. Ours does not have that problem. In fact, we have none of the reflectivity that traditional RTLS systems have.
It seems like you want to track the location of the puck. Reason being is you want to know where, say, the defensive players are when a goal scores.
Yes.
So the question is about whether or not this technology can be inserted into a puck to track the puck.
Well,
and there's value to it, added values. Yeah.
in fact, if it were permissible under the rules, we'd do it. But you're asking us to put electronics and batteries into an artifact of competition. And one of our primary goals is not to affect the competition itself. The only reason that the glowing puck worked because that was an in-camera insert similar to the stripe, which in fact was part of the early evolution. Good question, but it's just not practical. We have, however, been able to put grip and EMG, electromyography of muscle groups, into a hockey stick to tell the group and the grip force and the energy expenditure when they strike.
Well, our time is running down. Dan and I will be gladly available to answer questions or whatever you want to post to us outside this room for the next hour or so. We're at your disposal, so feel free to introduce yourself and approach us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.